And at the point where he now needs to reach out for an investor, when they take a look at the books, which by the way he has found time to separate from his personal account, they can see that between year X and year Y, you've been able to grow your profits this much. Then any investor can then reason that when you get much more, you would be able to then plow it back and do better. Then, of course, if you've been doing all of this, access to the stock exchange platform becomes a lot easier for you as a business, and then you can then begin to access better capital to be able to then grow your business and enter into new environments.
Take it higher.
Exactly.
Now, the tripod you're talking about will be the products or the people?
It would be financials, which could be profits, revenue, anything that is financial metrics. It would also be environmental, like Yinka mentioned, which means that whatever you're doing is not injurious to the society. These days, I don't know whether you heard, I mean, I know we're supposed to minimize mentioning companies, but this is public information. I don't know whether you heard about the carbon emission for the Volkswagen. That was a big global news, which everybody was worried whether it would sink the company because they had sort of doctored the emission they were giving to the environment. That's how seriously people take these things in the era of ozone layer depletion and all that. So when you're doing your business, you're tracking what you're putting back into the market. Again, you're also looking at ethics or the social aspect of your business. She mentioned the employees. At the end of the day, you want happy people working on your team, and because it's your employees that are going to take your products back to the market anyway. So at the end of the day, when you're thinking about the tripod stand, you're looking from the perspective of, I'm watching my financials, but I'm also watching what I do to the world around me, and I'm also making sure I'm an ethical business. I'm a socially responsible corporate entity.
Yes, we say that SMEs are the ones that drive the economy. We say that all the time. So are SMEs capable of delivering that dream economy that Nigeria is talking about?
My answer will be absolutely yes. SMEs are the bedrock of any strong economy. We can cite some examples like, what do SMEs really do? First, because they are labor intensive, they tend to generate more employment opportunities than big companies that are technology driven. Another thing is they help conserve the foreign exchange, because instead of people focusing on importation, we are able to produce locally and then limit our importation and increase our export base.
And we're talking about diversification of the economy.
Yes,
but I was at a business meeting, some time ago, and somebody said something about telling the entrepreneurs that you should focus more on your product or service. Don't look for money first. Because if you look for money first, if you focus on your product or service, then the money will look for you. Is that correct?
Very correct. Interestingly, I always say that once you get the model right, money is a natural byproduct. I mean, you can run through your mind products that you would naturally have an affinity for. You would find out that key things are, you've heard about the company, you're very satisfied with them, the product is very useful, the quality is unbeatable, and so there is loyalty. And one loyal customer gives birth to another loyal customer, and before you know it, the volume is increasing, and before you know it, profitability becomes the order of the day.
We'll look for you.
Precisely.
Yeah. Now, still talking about the SMEs. They are, as we've always said, the backbone of the economy. But what are those challenges that you think they still face, and everyone trying to be or come into small and medium enterprises should have at the back of their minds?
Okay, for the Nigerian economy in particular, because that's where we are anyway, the first thing that leaps at you is the infrastructure. Sometimes you have a very good business idea, you've even been able to conceptualize how to, as it were, birth it. But then, on what platform are you going to drive it? I sometimes travel to the hinterlands, and the roads are bad. So, for instance, somebody
You don't even need to get to the hinterlands.
Trust me, Lagos is a lot better than what you find in some other places. Sometimes even the bridges are half gone. And so, for instance, you take agricultural produce. Someone produces it at maybe a fraction of the price. But by the time you look at packaging and transportation and wastages, you end up paying multiples of what went into the production. And at that stage, any entrepreneur would get discouraged. So the state of our infrastructure is a major challenge. Another challenge is access to capital, which is what we've been talking about. You find out that generally speaking, people have an aversion. New businesses by their very nature are very, very tricky and very risky. And it's like a newborn baby. When you've just birthed the baby, you need to provide an environment for the baby to thrive until they're able to withstand the elements and the forces. Unfortunately, the structure we've had up until now, and I say up until now because there's a lot of renewed focus on that segment, is not such that allows them to come out and thrive, as it were, and learn to stand on their own. So what you usually advocate is, as a small business, try and get some mentorship. Try and identify a company you want to model yourself after. Luckily, in terms of capital,
that sounds very funny, because I was thinking, okay, I have a small business, but I want to become a Guinness tomorrow.
Yeah.
So how am I going to get the Guinness people to come and encourage me and tell me what to do?
Okay, so for instance, you want to become a Guinness tomorrow. There are many people who were in Guinness who are retired today. So why don't you identify one? Someone who's retired who wants to put back into the environment, and go after that person. So Guinness may not necessarily mentor you, but someone who is a veteran of Guinness might be willing to take you on as a mentee.
You never know.
You never know. So it's doing your homework, which is another aspect that I find challenging sometimes with our SME businesses. You sometimes think, or they sometimes think, that the carpet will naturally roll out and you would trod over it and strut and get into the place where you're made. It's not exactly like that. You've got to roll up your sleeves and do some research, as it were, which brings me back to her question. R&D is critical. I was talking to someone who sits on the board of one of the blue chip companies, and one of the things he had to say was R&D is so critical, and that's something that we have neglected in Nigeria. You can't do business as usual and thrive in a global economy. It's just not possible.
And now, Ipomosa at IPEMS on Twitter is asking that, he's saying that I think the NSC should review the listing rules around ASEMs to support SMEs.
Okay, what I would say to that is the listing rules for ASEM have actually been stepped down significantly. If you look at those rules compared to what you have on the main board, you would find out that there's been a lot of tempering. And like Yinka mentioned, what you also want to make sure is that you're showcasing companies that have sound governance structure. If you make it too lax, it becomes a bit of a challenge. But on the other hand, you've got the NASD, which is an OTC platform. So if you, for instance, are struggling with the ability to meet up with what the ASEM offers, start on the OTC platform. That doesn't have too much of a stringent requirement to get listed, and then graduate and come onto the ASEM board, and then graduate and move on to the main board. So
the same Ipomosa is saying that the current cost of listing is a disincentive to SMEs.
Oh, really? The last time I checked, I think it's significantly reduced. I think what Ipomosa may want to do is have a roadmap. As an SME, you may not want to just take a giant stride and hop onto that platform. But what are your plans to grow yourself? So for instance, work with a business incubator for a couple of months or years, maybe 18 months to 2 years. Let them grow you. If your bottom line gets more interesting, trust me, paying 50,000 to register and paying the minor listing fees is not going to take you out.
Yeah, she was talking about, you know, how to summon some of the challenges that SMEs face, and she said, get yourself a mentor. What more would you recommend?
Okay, you can't, like she mentioned, she also mentioned research and development. You can't be You can't say, okay, I'm an SME in Nigeria, and you don't develop yourself. You don't know what is going on globally. You don't know what innovations SMEs are imbibing into businesses that you should appreciate. Like she also mentioned, and like I mentioned too, financial education is very, very important. It's very important because that's the bottom line. Traditionally, that's what people look at. Before anyone can be interested in your business, they want to see your track record. They want to see your historicals. What have you been able to achieve with your own savings? And how are they sure that they are going to be able to get back their capital and returns on their investment?
Yeah, I think this is where we have to leave it. It's been nice talking to you on business sustainability and the Nigerian capital market. We've been speaking with the corporate finance analyst, Olayinka Oyetuji. Thank you so much for being here with us. And of course, the head corporate financial advisory business of Meristem Securities Limited, Adejumoke Awolumate. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so we go on another break, and this is the home stretch. To stay with us on Sunrise.